find the JALT 2025 call for abstract submissions, the easiest way is to go to JALT.org. And from our website's main page here, click there. At the top of this page is Call for Abstracts, now open. And here we are at events.jalt.org/event/37/abstracts. At the bottom of this page, you'll see the button to submit your new abstract.
It's a formally structured abstract, and there will be some changes to the vetting rubric for anyone who's worked as a reviewer. Okay, now, when you go to the call for abstracts page, at the bottom, there is a submit a new abstract. But please don't go there first. Before you go there, please look at the call for abstracts. There's a lot of really important information there. Okay, so the page doesn't actually look like this. I've just obviously written on top there. So when you go to the call for presentation proposals, there are different types of submissions. So there are unvetted submissions, and we're mostly not going to be talking about those today, but these are important to understand. If you've never presented at the international conference before, you might be eligible to be a first-time presenter. The first-time presenters are chosen by chapter officers, so talk to your chapter officers and see if you're eligible for that. Those do not go through the regular vetting process. Also, if you're a SIG member, SIGs are allowed to have a forum at the conference, and so the presenters at those are chosen by the SIG officers. So that's an important thing to understand. There are other ways to present at the international conference, but tonight we're going to talk about the vetted submissions. So these are vetted by committee. The deadline is the 2nd of March, and there are different formats. So there are research-oriented presentations, which are now 30 minutes. They used to be 25, and if I say 25 minutes, it's because I've been saying it for so many years. From now on, they'll be 30 minutes. There are long presentations, 60 minutes. The same with practice-oriented workshops, 30 minutes or 60 minutes. There are forums. This is basically for the SIGs to hold their forums and other meetings. And there are poster sessions, which are now 60 minutes. So there are different presentation formats. So you have to choose the appropriate format for your presentation. Now, how many proposals are submitted? It depends on the year and the venue and stuff, but generally 500 to 700 abstracts are submitted. So there's a huge job in reviewing, vetting, selecting the abstracts. So not last year, 2023, there were 413 25-minute presentation abstracts submitted, 53 60-minute abstracts, and 69 90-minute abstracts. But many of those 90-minute ones will be SIG forums and stuff. So most people choose a 25-minute presentation. So we hold a lot more 30-minute presentations. But don't believe that it's impossible to get a 60-minute slot. There are actually a lot fewer submissions for that time slot. Now, so how many do we accept? We get 500 to 700 submissions. Well, poster sessions, there are many, many slots available. So that's actually a pretty easy way to be accepted. 30-minute sessions, there are many slots available. 60, 90-minute sessions, many fewer. Now, it's very difficult to give precise numbers because the unvetted proposals reduce the number of slots. So the SIG forums and meetings, the chapter-sponsored first-time presenters, and also our associate members who are sponsoring the conference. Okay, so it depends on the venue, the number of rooms, the number of unvetted proposals. So it's very difficult to say how many of the vetted proposals will actually be accepted. In 2023, there were 339 25-minute presentations, including the unvetted first-time presenters. There were 54 60-minute presentations. It's very difficult to come up with a number for the 90-minute presentations because it included meetings and stuff. But this means we cannot accept all the submissions. Many, many, many submissions have to be rejected. So how to get accepted? You have to write a good abstract. Because we have to reject so many actually very good submissions have to be rejected. We can't just accept all the good ones. We have to reject many that are actually good. Now, the only thing that our reviewers know about you is your abstract. They don't know who you are. They don't know, your background. So writing a good abstract is really important. A well-written one will be accepted. A poorly written one will not be accepted. So you go to the online submission form. Very important thing is, before you submit, register at events.jalt.org and use an email address that you check regularly, because we often get people who submit an email address and they never check it and we can't contact them. Think carefully about using a work email account. Sometimes they block mail that looks like spam and people don't realize we're trying to contact them. Or you change jobs and you lose access to your email address, you're locked out of the system. Okay, so you should register with the Indico system first and then submit your abstract. Now, when you submit, get the details correct. There are some tricky things here. Each person can only present one time as the main presenter and can present in one other presentation as a second speaker. Okay, so you can present 2 times at only one time as a main presenter. You can only have 6 presenters per submission. So that's mostly for forums and things, when you have a longer time slot. And only 3 presenters per institution for any single proposal. So you cannot just get everybody that you work with and put their name on it. Also, you must register for and attend the conference. If you do not register for the conference, you will be removed from the conference handbook and you will not be able to claim that you presented. Now, when you submit, the first thing you have to do is give a title. The title is limited to 60 characters, including spaces. Okay. Now, I'm not entirely sure about the Indico system. I think it will block you if you try to submit too long of a title. But the old system would just cut it off. So if you submitted many-faceted rationale analysis of classroom dynamic peer assessment, it would cut it off and you would end up with peer acids. And something like this actually did happen. Somebody had assessment as the final word, and it got cut off, and reviewers saw as. Okay. So please keep your title within that limit. Now, a tricky little thing here. When you add yourself, you must click the speaker. There's a little button there, speaker. You must add a speaker. If you do not do that, it will not accept your submission. And as I know, I did a practice run and it wouldn't accept my practice submission because I didn't click speaker. Okay, so after you've done that, after you've added the speaker, then you add your other presenters. It's a pretty simple system, but make sure you click speaker. So then you have to choose a contribution type. So again, forum, poster presentations, short or long workshops or research presentations. Okay, so you must choose one of those. And this is really important. You're asked to choose a track. In previous years, this was called the content. In Indico, it's called the track. The tracks are kind of aligned with 6. So there's 13 different tracks and a non-teaching content. That's for meetings or business sessions. Now, the reason the track is really, really important is this is what's used to assign reviewers to your abstract. So you need to choose what background you want the reviewers to have. If you select the wrong track, quite likely the reviewers will come back to me and say, I can't review this. That's if you're lucky. If you're unlucky, they'll just say, no, boot it. Okay, so this is a very important decision. Think about what track is appropriate for your submission. Then on the form, there's a reminder to register. Okay, this is so we can confirm you have an account in the CV. We want to help you, and if we can't contact you, you're not going to be able to present at the conference. There's a question, is it a commercial promotion? So JALT associate members can make commercial promotions as unvetted submissions. If you're taking this workshop, you're probably not going to be making commercial promotion. Now, there's a section for language. Your abstract can be in English or in Japanese, because we have English and Japanese literate reviewers. Your presentation does not have to be in English or Japanese. It can be in any human language. Okay. So the abstract must be English or Japanese, but not necessarily the presentation. Then you are asked for the teaching contexts. This is not related to the review process. This is used for scheduling. It's put into the handbook so that the people who attend the conference can choose what presentations they want to attend. So this is only used for scheduling. If you get this wrong, well, it won't change the vetting, it won't change your chance of acceptance, it might change your chance of getting an audience. Then you're asked to write a short summary, 75 words or 150 Japanese characters. Now, this is your sales pitch to attract an audience at the conference. The reviewers do not look at this, it's not considered, okay? So this is really important to talk to your audience and attract your audience. Then we get to the abstract. Now, the abstract is the only thing that determines the acceptance or rejection. This is what the reviewers see. You cannot include personally identifying information. It happens sometimes. People say, hey, I know who this is. It's the reviewers say, hey, I need to switch out of this. So do not include information about your organization, your research grant, etc. Okay, now, there is a word limit of 250 words. You should try to use all of that. If you don't use all your word limit, you're just leaving money on the table, okay? Abstracts that are too short are very unlikely to be accepted. So, I would say 200 words is the absolute minimum that you should think of. Try to get up to 240, 245, just the system. Okay, 240, 245. Now, one thing that will really help is citing literature. The reviewers do not know who you are. You may have a PhD, you may be a world famous expert. We don't know that. So you have to cite literature to signal that you have expertise in the field. Okay. Reviewers respond very positively to citing literature supporting your presentation. And follow the required structure. I'll get onto that. Now, in previous years, people were asked to write a structured abstract with basically 3 sections. So there's a background, and then you try to foreground what you're doing and give details. But many, many abstracts were not written that way. And it makes it very hard work for the reviewers. Reviewers do not respond well to badly structured abstracts. So this year, we have made 4 sections to submit. So you must follow the structure. This is to help you get accepted, because this is what the reviewers respond well to. Now, there is a background section. Now, that is a 100-word maximum limit. There is a method or content section. So the method section is for research. The content section is for classroom practice-oriented presentations. Okay, that has a word limit of 75 words. There is a section for research questions for researchers or aims for practice-oriented presenters. And then there is a section for results and outcomes. So that has 100 words. Now, if you count that up, that comes to 350 words. You should not write 350 words. You should choose how to allocate your quota of 250 words between these. It gives you a little bit of flexibility. Okay. Now, why did we break it into 4 sections? Because this is what reviewers respond positively to. They want to see a nice, easy structure to follow. It's not a mystery novel. Okay, you're not a creative writer trying to leave some clues for us, and we have to work to find the answer. And some abstracts really are hard to follow. Okay, so we're not trying to deliberately limit. Sorry, we are trying to deliberately limit your creativity. Okay? That's the point. We don't want you to be too creative. Okay, so I've seen many interesting abstracts. Reviewers have said, I can't really recommend this because they haven't given the information we need. The reviewers like it, they like the idea, but they can't accept it because people have just left things out. So what we're trying to do is force you to provide the information that the reviewers want to see. And I know a lot of people don't like writing to these structures, but it's to try and help you get accepted. So looking through that, abstract section 1, the background. To explain the relevance of the presentation with reference to current theory, practice, and research literature. So what you need to do is signal to the reviewers that you have expertise and understand how your proposal relates to existing knowledge and practice. Now, if you're doing research, you should be familiar with the research literature. Okay. People who say, well, I don't read the journals, well, then you shouldn't be doing research. If you're doing a workshop, okay, it's a little bit different. You should be able to advise about literature on best practice in the field. So maybe not necessarily research journals, but you should understand, there are a lot of books out there about classroom practice. So cite those, okay. You probably didn't invent all the things you're doing. You have to say, where did you source these ideas from? Now, abstract section 2, the method or content. So for researchers, it's a method. For practice-oriented, it's the content. So if you're a researcher, explain your research method. What did you do? How did you do it? It's a practice-oriented research. Explain the procedure you will follow. The reviewers want to know what you are planning to do. So the reviewers really respond well to concrete details. Then we have a section for research questions or aims. So a researcher, you need to explicitly state what questions you are trying to answer with your research. If you can't do that, you're not going to have effective research. In a practice-oriented research, explicitly state the purpose of the workshop. This helps you clarify what you're trying to do, what you're trying to teach people. And it signals to the reviewers that you have a clear purpose in your proposal. And finally, we have results and outcomes. So in a research presentation, very briefly explain the important findings in research. We do not accept research proposals. If you haven't got something to present, if you don't have some results, please don't submit. Wait until the next year. In a practice-oriented workshop, explicitly describe the content of the workshop and what the participants will learn. Okay, so tell the abstract reviewers what the audience will learn. Now, if you're worried about people, leaking your research results before it's published, don't worry about that. The only people who see it are the reviewing team, and they will not reveal the results ahead of your presentation. Okay, so there's no secrets in this. So now, what if you don't like highly structured writing? Well, I don't. I hate 5-paragraph essays, and yet I teach them to my writing classes. These are boring. They stifle the creativity. They're meant to be. Okay? This is like Billy Joel versus the Sex Pistols. Now, Billy Joel is a perfectly competent singer. He's a pretty good singer. Okay, he's just not very interesting to me. I rate him as a B. He's very, very competent. Many, many people like it. The Sex Pistols are very exciting, but many people don't like them. Okay, They are highly controversial. So you want to be Billy Joel, very popular, but maybe a little bit boring. You don't want to go the Sex Pistols route and try and be too exciting and offend people. So reviewers respond positively to these structured abstracts. So they want to see background, foreground, and details. So we're trying to force you to give the reviewers what they want. Now, I'm going to remind you, if you really don't like writing these structured abstracts and going through the vetting process, there are other ways to present a JALT. So you can join a SIG and talk to the program chair, participate in a forum, and you'll have a lot more creativity there. Okay. If you have something that doesn't really fit in with the research or practice-oriented workshop thing, talk to the SIGs. Okay, the SIGs are completely free to vet their presenters any way they want. There are also local chapter conferences and SIG conferences. One thing is, if you really don't have a research background or background in literature, chapters usually have MyShare meetings. You don't have to do a literature review. You can just show what you do in the classroom. So that's the appropriate venue if you don't want to do a literature review. Now, the reference section. Now, one thing is you don't have to submit a reference section. It's not compulsory, but it's highly recommended. These are not counted in the abstract word limit, so you can put in as many references as you like. Use the APA format generally. So within the text, you have author year, in reference list, author year title, journal name, issue, pages, DOI. The submission system cannot handle italics or indents, so technically it's not really fully APA compliant, but it's an APA style system. So here's an example. Now, within the text, you would say, this study extended Holston Lake's 2016 analysis of getting behavior to include. In the reference section, you see the author name, the year, etc. APA style, but there's no indent. And in the Indigo system, you will not see the italics. Now, anonymizing references. You can refer to your own published work if it's a significant work. Do that in the third person. Okay. So raters are usually associated with SIGs and will be familiar with the major publications. If you identify yourself as author for a known publication, raters can identify you. So for example, if somebody said, this paper extends the author's 1905 model of the invariance of frames of reference. Okay, anybody guess who wrote that?
Einstein.
Albert Einstein, one of the most famous papers in the history of science. So do not do that. Cite yourself in third person. Now, before you submit your abstract, run it through a plain text editor. So in Windows, you have Notepad, and I'm sure Macs have a plain text editor. Okay, because sometimes the character sets in word processors cause problems when documents are uploaded online. Okay, so for example, when you have foreign names, non-English names with strange characters, they often get mangled. So please run it through a plain text editor. Now, the review process. We have about 70 active reviewers. There's another 20. Every year, some people take a break and whatever. So last year, we had about 70 active reviewers. If we have 500 submissions and 3 ratings, that's 500 rating sessions. So each reviewer is seeing about 30 abstracts on average. Some are seeing many more. David Kluge deserves applause. I think last year he rated about 70 or 80 or 90 because a couple of reviewers had family disasters and could not do their reviews, quite understandably, so we had to find alternate reviewers. So please don't waste the reviewers' time. They're really busy. They have a lot of work to do. So now the reviewers are grouped by track. So they choose which track they have expertise in. Somebody like Wayne Malcolm, who's the National Director of the Program, he's basically capable. He should be capable of reviewing any track, all tracks. So the experienced program chairs will review all tracks, but reviewers can limit to specific tracks. And they can also decline to review any submissions they feel they lack expertise in. So if you submit to the wrong track, the reviewers will say, please give it to somebody else. Okay, so it's sent to another reviewer. So how do we vet these proposals? So they're blind reviewed by at least 3 reviewers. In some cases, they're sent to like further reviews if there's some disagreement. They are then rank ordered from the lowest to highest using what's called a fair average score, which I'll explain a little bit about soon. The highest rated proposals are chosen to fill the number of available slots. So we start with the highest rated, we'll just keep going down until everything's filled. So the problem is many good abstracts have to be rejected. We just cannot accept them all. So being rejected doesn't mean you have a terrible proposal. It means that probably it's that we just don't have enough slots. Now, we are using an 8-item rubric. This is a change from last year. The rubric closely follows the presentation form. So the reviewers will review the title. Is the title directly related to the content? This should be a really easy one to get full marks on, okay? But sometimes people's titles are just baffling. Then background. So this is for the background section in the abstract. Method for content, the research questions and aims, the results and outcomes. The reference section. Now, you don't have to submit a reference section, but it is part of the review process. If you don't submit it, you will lose points. Okay. Then organization. Now, you are kind of constrained to follow the specified format, but if you put information in the wrong sections, you will lose points. And clarity. Is it easy to read without major writing? I'm somewhat sympathetic to people whose second language is English. I can overlook things that are awkward phrasing. Sometimes it's unnatural. As long as it's clear what they mean. I'm sympathetic to that. Not everybody is quite as sympathetic. What I'm not sympathetic to is people who are clearly native speaker, university teachers, and they cannot write anything clearly. I have very little sympathy for that. It's laziness. So we have a 4-point rating scale. So it's rated, your abstract, each section of your abstract will be rated from D to A. So 0, 1, 2, or 3 points. Now, so we have 70 or more reviewers, 3 or more reviews per abstract. It was only 3 reviewers. If one reviewer assigns low ratings, you will probably be rejected. You just have to antagonize one reviewer and you will be booted. So you really have to score highly across all the categories with all reviewers. So the reviewers respond positively to well-structured abstracts that are clear and specific. So try to be Billy Joel. Don't try and be the Sex Pistols, okay? I like the Sex Pistols. I'm not that crazy about Billy Joel. This is not the time for that. Be Billy Joel. Now, after the reviews are done, we do data analysis. This is how I initially got involved. Now, raters are human, and humans differ in the severity of their judgments. Now, teachers will always tell me, they constantly say this, oh, I'm an expert, I've been doing this for 20 years. You're a human, and this has been well researched for decades. Humans really differ in the severity of the judgments. So a single lenient or severe rater will decide the fate of the submission, and reviewers are very different in their severity. So we use, or I use a analysis called many-faceted rash measurement. And this allows us to measure the rater severity and adjust. And this is to be fair to the abstract writers, the submitters. Okay, so if the raters are consistent in their being more lenient and severe, we can adjust for that. So that's where we get the fair average score. So we adjust for the rater severity to be fair. If you get a very strict rater, you're not going to be penalized for that. Okay, now I'm going to just give you a very quick illustration of this. I'm not going to show you the JALT data. I'm going to show you a little research project I did, which was on speaking tests. We had 10 trained and certified raters by ACTFL. Okay, these raters had a certificate saying they'd done like several months of training, and 20 Japanese university students speaking tests. Now, in this, you can see P, each P in the vertical scale. So on the left-hand column, you can see P02 is the highest ability student. This is the highest ability speaker. At the bottom, you can see here are my glasses. P17 is the lowest ability speaker. Okay, so the vertical scale shows the ability of the students in speaking. There's a very big gap. P02 is way, way better than the others. Now, in the next column, you can see the raters. You can see R9 was the most severe rate, much stricter. Okay, and R7 was the most lenient rater. So there's actually quite a big difference in these raters. Okay, these are trained and certified raters. Yet the difference in severity of these raters is about half the range of most of the student ability. Okay, so if these students get a strict rater, they will fail, and if they get a lenient rater, they will succeed. Okay, now, okay, more about those raters. I can't find 10 certified raters to do this for free. This was me doing the ratings 10 times, months apart. So I'm a trained and certified rater. I differ massively in my severity at different times. Okay? And this is a consistent finding in research. Even on the same day, people change. Did you get enough coffee this morning? Did you drink too much coffee? Did the abstract writer annoy me with a buzzword like innovative? Okay, if you put the word innovative in your abstract and I read it and it's not innovative, I'm going to be really annoyed. And I see that a lot. Okay, this is a buzzword that really, really irritates me. Okay, so little things can irritate reviewers. So this is why we use manufactured corrections. Try to compensate for this. So we use fair average scores to try and be fair to people. Okay, now, if you want to read more about that, you can look at this book by Tim McNamara, Uta Nock, and Jason Fan called Fairness, Justice, and Language Assessment. I highly recommend this if you're interested in language assessment and fairness rationing. Now, we have this other problem, misfitting raters. The many-faceted rash measurement can adjust for severity as long as raters are consistently different. But sometimes people behave idiosyncratically. So we do what's called fit analysis to identify idiosyncratic ratings. And then, sometimes it's just a data entry problem. Somebody enters a 0 instead of a 9. That'll throw things right off. Sometimes, a rater gets irritated because somebody says it's innovative and it's not. Okay, so we can do fit analysis. We can identify those idiosyncratic ratings and then send them out for further reviews. Okay, now, so what do the reviewers see? They see the abstract, any identifying information, the title, the reference list, the content, context. So they do not know who you are. You may have a PhD, you may have done amazing research. The reviewers do not know that. What is not considered? Well, the background, we don't know. We don't know who you are. And there's no quota for content evidence. Okay. We do not consider whether it's a research or practice-oriented proposal. Okay. We just accept the ones that are most highly rated. So there's no quota for research or practice-oriented. Now, how's the time going? Okay, I'm going to give you some sample abstracts to look at. In the room here, we're going to take a short break. I'm going to just have to dig out those abstracts and put them in the chat. So please give me a couple of minutes and I'll dig that out. So what I'd like you to do, I'll give you 4 abstracts. There's abstract 1 and 2 and 6 and 7. In chat rooms, I'd like you to look at either, so one of those first 2 and one of the second 2. And if you finish that, then please look at the others. But random break.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. And the recording is back in progress.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So, does anyone want to discuss any of those abstracts? What do you think about them? Anyone? Sorry.
I couldn't open any of the files.
Are we using raised hands? Or are we open here, or just speak up?
Oh, well, you're speaking, so please keep speaking.
Looks like you do. Okay, yeah, I'll go. My name's Wayne Malcolm. I'm the director of conference for JALT. Yeah, I was the one who made the comment about being a super reviewer, although I'm not a super reviewer. I'm just a reviewer. I review when I can. I will say that, yeah, we could have probably had a little longer to kind of do this, but in terms of the abstracts, we looked at very quickly, abstract 1, the sample research 1, and abstract 2, the 60-minute workshop 1. And yeah, we ran into that same problem. Some PDFs open for some. So it opened for me fairly well. So I just shared my screen with the others in my group, because mine seemed to open well. But I was saying to the other 3 people in my group, didn't have much experience actually rating these, and I've been doing it for the past few years. So unfortunately, I was talking a lot more than we were kind of discussing. But some of the things that I was saying was that, for example, in sample research, the research-oriented one that was 25 minutes, it seemed like it was almost set up like part research, but like part like workshop, like, because keywords I was looking at were like, we're using like a rash analysis, like the modeling rash analysis. And also I was kind of going through the abstract itself. It seemed more like I'm looking at how to use a tool more than presenting research. We didn't go through the whole thing. So that I was kind of like, this kind of triggers me a little bit as a researcher, as a reviewer, that maybe this is misaligned. Maybe it's going to take a little bit. Well, one, I think it's going to take a little bit to explain rash analysis to a general community. You're going to probably have to maybe take a little bit longer. So maybe 25 minutes is not going to be enough, unless you really want a very specific crowd. Because once you mention a word like rash analysis, I have a feeling you're basically talking to a small group of people. You're like, okay, I am talking to you. I know who's going to come to my presentation. Everyone else is going to be like, I wonder what this rash analysis thing is. So you end up having to ask yourself, is 25 minutes really going to be enough to sort of get into rash analysis for a layman who might be interested, but is like, I wonder what that is like. So that's one thing that I was kind of thinking about. Maybe 25 minutes wasn't enough for that. Maybe I'd probably go to maybe try my hand at a SIG forum or something like that, or try my hand at a longer. If you think you can talk about it longer, go longer. So that was one thing with that, number one. Number two, we did with the workshop, seemed very much like a workshop. There was a lot of content there. They used words like demonstrate multiple times. I will demonstrate this. I will demonstrate that. I will demonstrate this. So that tells me that tells me as a reviewer that there is something that's going to be done in this workshop. And so hopefully they do that. And that's what the focus is. The focus was clearly on presenting and doing these, using some kind of software to run some kind of assessment analysis. And that seemed pretty aligned. The title was a little vague. The title was vague. I was like, what does the title mean? So I kind of skipped the title. So they may get points off on the title, but the other areas seem pretty strong in terms of what they were talking about. So we only got to those two, and that was it.
Anyone else want to comment on those? Okay, I'll actually just explain a little bit about those. So the first one was accepted to the JALT conference a few years ago using the old format. So it's been rewritten slightly, but the main structure is there. Wayne actually kind of nailed it there, because that was originally written for a different conference called the PROMS conference, which is a rash conference. So it's presenting a technical topic to people who know the technical topic. Then trying to rewrite that for JALT, we have to kind of think about, we're talking to classroom teachers, and they're not going to understand the technical side of it. And that's not always a good idea. Maybe, I think Wayne is right. That's probably something better done than the TVAL SIG as a forum. So right. I think a very good observation there. The second one isn't a real one. I wrote that as a potential workshop. My concern, if I was reviewing that, is there's way too much to do in one workshop that really would require three. So, we could demonstrate those three things quickly, but we would have to follow that up, maybe with the TVAL SIG doing follow-up workshops if people want to actually learn to do those things. So I would question whether it's possible to do that much in one workshop. That would be my big concern. Any comments? And again, it might be too technical for a general thing. It might be better to talk to the TVAL SIG and do a workshop with the TVAL SIG.
Yeah.
The JALT International Conference is for classroom teachers mostly. And there's a lot of reviewers, but pretty much everyone is working as a teacher, and it's not a psychometric conference. So the TVAL SIG is there to handle those technical things.
Yeah, I would say if you really want to do something like that, you probably would need a 60-minute kind of time frame. Yeah,
or a SIG with a 90-minute.
Or a SIG with a 90-minute form.
Yeah.
Frame.
A question in the chat. Okay.
Would sample 2 be penalized for being quite narrow, not so interactive from the JALT participants?
That will depend on the reviewers, and this is the big thing. I think if some of the TVAL reviewers saw it, they'd be like, great. But the assessment and the materials are in one track. So if the materials people see it, I think they would be skeptical. I would expect them to downgrade it a little. Now, I know that was accepted to a conference a few years ago. I do not know what the ratings were. In theory, I could probably go back and find out, but I don't do that. I don't want to do that. When I submit an abstract, or when Wayne or in any of the officers submit abstracts, they just go in, they're reviewed anonymously, and we don't want to know what's going on there. So I don't know actually how highly or lowly it was reviewed. Yes.
Greg says that Yuki in the breakout room brought up passive voice and active voice. Does that make a difference to the abstract user?
That'll depend on the reviewers. But in general, we are advised to use active voice as much as possible. But
we are advised to use active voice.
Yeah. But good writers use passive voice, but they use it well. So Yeah. The issue here is our reviewers don't have time to do extensive workshops on reviewing. We have to trust that they are experts and are able to do this. So details like that, it's really up to the reviewers.
Active voice, fewer words.
Yeah, that's the other thing, keeping that word count down.
I think Brian Gallagher has his hand up.
Brian.
Hi, Trevor. How are you doing?
Good. Hey, Brian.
I was wondering, so this is the standard for JALT International.
Yes.
But it's a different standard for other JALT conferences like PanSig and Call and things like that, right?
Yes.
Is there a plan that everybody would move to a standard?
No, not at all.
No.
I think that would be a terrible idea.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
PanSig is a different conference run by the SIGs, and we don't want to, so for example, if I submitted these rash things to PanSig, I would expect them to be reviewed by TVAL and attended by TVAL people. So I would submit a more technical abstract, okay? And, PanSig is a different thing. It's appealing to different people for a different reason. We have local conferences run by chapters. That's a different thing. We don't expect our local members to be doing a lot of research. Some of them do research, but many of them are interested in classroom practice. So that's a completely different thing. So no, absolutely not. That would be a terrible idea.
So I guess it was kind of a rhetorical question, but I guess there's probably people who maybe go to the PanSig conference and then maybe expecting it's going to be a similar standard for the JALT National. So it's just, I think people have to be made very clear that it is very separate and very different, although it's within the JALT family. JALT International is a higher standard than that. So
I don't think it's a higher standard. I think it's a different type of, it's a slightly different type of conference, and it's important to understand that. But,
I just mean like the rubric that is applied is more complex, shall we say.
Can I jump in for a second? I just want to say a couple things about the PanSig. Also, with PanSig, their review process, they actually contact some of the possible abstracts and actually kind of go through them and run a few more workshops that actually help people resubmit and kind of improve their abstracts, because they just don't have as many, and they have a decent sized committee as well that can actually go through and help people kind of clean up their abstracts. And it's based on score. It's not that everyone gets accepted, but it is like, oh, there's this many people above this score. If they were to clean up their abstract a little bit, they would be accepted into the conference. So they actually go and actually help people do that. Our situations, there's just too many. And when you get to a conference of this scale and you have 500 abstracts, when you receive like 600 abstracts and you have to go through and score all of them, and then you have to then place 500, and then you have other bits. Yeah, that's why we're doing this now, giving people as much information as possible so that they can write the best abstracts as possible, because it's really hard to go back and say, hey, if you just tweak this a little bit, it'll make it. So
and one thing is, I don't think anybody reads all of the abstracts that are submitted. I certainly don't. Maybe Paul Collette that I read a lot, but there's no way anybody can read 500 or 600 or 700. So no single person reads them all. There's another question in the chat about quantitative and qualitative research. Both are equally welcome. I don't do qualitative research. The reason I don't do it is because it's really difficult to do. Quantitative research is much easier to do. So people who think that they're going to do qualitative research because it's easier than doing quantitative, no way. So qualitative research is equally welcome, but obviously you have to communicate your plans for your presentation. And so, qualitative research, you still have to have research questions. Yeah, so that's the answer.
Mixed methods.
Oh, and mixed methods, yes.
Mixed
Yes.
methods is very difficult. I will say, if you label I do mixed methods research, and I've done it. If I see something that says mixed methods, and I'm only hearing like one side, it's not gonna fly. Or if I hear only, I interviewed a bunch of people, and I got this grounded theory, blah 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 blah, and I see no statistical analysis on the other side, it's not going to get through, because you have to have both, obviously, because it says mixed. But yeah, it's a very tricky thing. So be very, think carefully how you want to present whatever research study you're doing, or if you're trying to do a workshop on mixed methods research and showing people some kind of technique or something like that, that's an easy way to, here's how you could do qualitative and quantitative in an easier fashion or something. Think really hard about that, because it is very difficult to get that across on paper, especially to people who might be like Trevor. If it pops up on his desk and he's reading a quantitative, it's like, oh yeah, the quantitative stuff sounds great, but what is this? How does this fit? How does this other side fit into it? It's going to get, there's going to be a lot of people looking at it. So think carefully. That's all. Think carefully about what you want to present and how you want to present it.
Okay, so where does how to fit in? For example, years ago, Greg Strong was explaining how to prepare for and navigate the J pension system. That would fit in as a workshop. So you're demonstrating how to do this.
Non-teaching.
It could be a non-teaching area too. But also that might be something that would be better if you can do a forum. A forum might be an appropriate context for that.
Yeah, that's a very specific one. Just to not to hog the mic here, but to jump in. That kind of something like that, like a J pension system. That sounds like a non-teaching area, and something that might be better if you went through either a SIG, or if you made it a specific forum. You went through like a forum, because there's so many that do get accepted like as a forum in itself, but that takes a lot of heavy lifting. So that's something that people would look at, like, hey, what is this 90-minute forum being done here?
Okay.
Can I say a couple of things?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. There's a question brought up in our discussion about when the person saw the format of the abstract and says, this looks very different than past JALTs. And I said, yes, it is very different. And that's something to remember. Tell your friends or whoever that, yes, this is a different looking format. But as Trevor said in the beginning, it used to be, okay, here's your 250 words, write your paragraph. But based on actual feedback we were getting, people were just like, what should I include? We're having these kind of workshops, like, well, what should I include in the abstract? What should I include in the abstract? What should I include in the abstract? So he basically just broke it down, and that's how the reviewers are going to see it. So we basically just broke it down into these areas, as Trevor was explaining in the beginning of the video, and that just helps us as the JALT conference just kind of really streamline our process a little bit, so that when we do everything on the back end, reviewers, and then when we go into the programming, it's just a lot easier. It's just a lot easier. And so we're showing you what we see and what our reviewers see, and that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal really is to help people write better abstracts, because that's, see what we see, and how we see things and how we kind of break things down.
Yeah, and the old system submission asked people to use a structure with a background and a foreground detail structure, which is really what we have here. We've just kind of formalized, but many authors didn't follow that, and it makes the abstracts really difficult to read and review. And reviewers would leave comments, just saying this is just impossible to follow. And so what we're trying to do is help, especially novice writers, say, this is a simple structure you can follow. Please follow this. It makes our reviewers much happier, and you're much more likely to be accepted.
Just devil's advocate on one of those points, though. Writing a structured abstract being a skill in its own, isn't that actually something that could be used for vetting? As a question, is the abstract structured?
The issue there is that what it turns into is a writing competition. So not really a competition of who can give the best presentation. This is the problem. The first, when I started, I said, I went to the conference and I went to this presentation. And the guy wrote a lovely summary in the handbook. It looked like a really interesting presentation. So some people are really good at this. So what we're trying to do is actually remove that, make it less of a writing competition and more a case of show us specifically what you have. So, yeah, that's...
Righto, thanks.
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll end the meeting, and I hope to see people at the ZPD. Okay, so January 28th, the peer support group will be hosting the ZPD and running a workshop. I'll be there. I'm hoping Wayne will be there as well. Is there anybody from the ZPD still around to want to quickly talk about that? Oh, okay. Okay. So there'll be a ZPD January 28th and another one at the end of February, February 25th. So that's about a week or a few days before the close of submission. So there's 2 chances to do another workshop with a real abstract. Okay, anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Trevor, for spearheading the meeting and the vetting. It's like you said, this is a kind of new system. Everyone's kind of had to wrap their heads around everything that's happening. And we have Mr. Jenkins, our server administrator, who's been instrumental in helping out and setting things up on Indigo. We also have some other people who are not here who I want to give a shout out to. Bill White, who's our new website manager, and Jeff Carr, who is our kind of a Indigo administrator as well. He's been really instrumental in helping set up a lot of the content on Indigo, and we also thank Theron Muller, because we stole the not stole, we cloned. Is that what it says in Indigo, Adam? Cloned. We cloned the PanSig site basically into the JALT site, and then just kind of changed some of the content so that we could get things going. So thanks to Theron, and thanks to the whole PanSig as well, because usually they're our testing site for what happens at JALT National.
I would just add to that Theron Muller, amongst all of the other thousands of hats he wears for JALT, is also the back-end system admin as well. He's one of the team of back-end system admins that is running the Indigo server. So he is somewhat directly related here.
Yeah. So there's a whole heap of people to thank, and I could probably sit here and filibuster and thank everybody, but I just wanted to say that before we go.
Okay, thank you all very much. Hope to see you at the ZPD.